Welcome to our Topposts, where we dive into some of the most unexpected and sometimes awkward stories that make people question if they're the a-hole in their own lives. Today's question is a bit unusual but very real. Am I the a-hole for needing to poop right after sex? I'm a 36-year-old woman, and my partner is 38. We've been together for nearly a decade, and from the start, we've made honest communication our foundation. Whether it's about our feelings, boundaries, or any awkward issues that come up, we've always talked openly and honestly, so it's especially surprising how something as natural as needing to go to the bathroom after sex has become a major point of tension between us. I've always had a sensitive stomach, which means my digestive system can be a bit unpredictable. Sometimes, right after intercourse, I suddenly feel the urgent need to use the bathroom, and yes, that means a bowel movement. It's never been a problem to mention it before, and my partner has always understood and even made jokes to lighten the mood. But lately, things have shifted, and this natural reaction has caused an unexpected conflict that's left me wondering if I'm in the wrong for needing to go right after we're intimate. This story isn't just about bathroom habits, it's about trust, respect, and how even the closest relationships can be tested by the most ordinary human experiences. From the very beginning, openness and honesty have been the pillars of our relationship. We made a conscious choice to be transparent about our boundaries, likes and dislikes, especially when it came to intimacy. We talked openly about what we were comfortable with and what crossed the line. This level of communication made our connection stronger and built deep trust that has lasted all these years. Sexual preferences weren't off limits, and we never hesitated to discuss changes in our feelings or desires. If something felt uncomfortable or awkward, we'd bring it up right away instead of letting resentment build. That openness created a safe space where we could share honestly without fear of judgment. Because of this, the recent conflict surprised me. It felt like a break in our usual pattern, like suddenly one of us was ignoring the trust we'd built for years. I never thought that something as basic as needing to use the bathroom right after sex could cause tension or make my partner upset. I believed that in a healthy relationship these natural moments would be understood and accepted. This experience reminded me just how important communication really is. Even when issues seem small or embarrassing, talking through them openly can prevent misunderstandings and hurt feelings. I've always believed that the way couples handle the awkward or uncomfortable moments is what truly defines their bond. But now, faced with this unexpected challenge, I'm learning just how complicated that can be. That night felt perfect from the start. We'd both had a stressful week, and the mood was set for a quiet evening and soft music played in the background. As we dimmed the lights, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere, we'd cooked dinner together, shared some wine, and laughed over silly stories. The tension of daily life seemed to melt away, replaced by a comfortable closeness that only years of knowing each other can bring. As the night wore on, our playful touches turned into tender kisses. I could feel the anticipation building between us, that familiar spark igniting once again. We shared whispered conversations about our day, our hopes, and our connection, making the moment feel even more intimate. It wasn't just about sex, it was about being truly present with each other. When we finally made love, it was gentle and filled with care. We moved slowly, savoring the closeness, and I felt reassured by how attentive he was. He checked in with me often, making sure I was comfortable and enjoying myself. There was a natural rhythm to the moment, a beautiful balance of passion and trust. But just moments after we finished, I was hit with an intense sudden urge to poop. It caught me off guard like an urgent wave crashing down, and I felt the overwhelming need to rush to the bathroom. I tried to ignore it at first, hoping it would pass, but it only grew stronger. Without thinking, I jumped up and hurried out of the room, forgetting to grab my robe, leaving him standing there confused. When I reached the bathroom, I could hear him following behind, his footsteps hesitant. At the door, he paused, concern clear in his voice as he asked if I was okay. I tried to lighten the mood with a laugh and explained that sometimes sex triggers this sudden need for a bowel movement because of my sensitive stomach. I reassured him that it was normal and nothing to worry about, but then I noticed the change in his expression. The confusion quickly shifted to discomfort, and suddenly he took a step back, almost as if I'd startled him. His eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a hint of disgust that hadn't been there before. I asked if something was wrong, and that's when he said it. There was still poop in your butt while we were doing it. At first, I thought he was joking. I even laughed and teased him. Well, at least it stayed in there until you were done. But his face didn't soften. Instead, his agitation grew. He asked how I could not have known, why I hadn't cleaned more thoroughly. It was as if he was accusing me of deliberately ruining the moment. The room felt heavy with tension. I was stunned, unsure of how to respond. His sudden anger felt like a betrayal after years of open communication. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was hurting. Then, without another word, he grabbed a pillow and some blankets, announcing that he'd sleep on the couch for the night. I was left alone, naked and confused on the bathroom floor, trying to process what had just happened. Sitting there in the quiet bathroom, I was overwhelmed by confusion. How had this simple, natural thing turned into a fight? I kept replaying the conversation in my mind, wondering where it had all gone wrong. When I finally came out, wrapped in a towel, I tried to explain again gently. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. It's just my body's reaction. But he wasn't having it. His face was tight with frustration, and his voice grew sharper as he insisted. You had to know. How could you not prepare better? I tried to explain how I'd done everything I normally do, cleaning using warm water, making sure I felt ready, but his irritation only seemed to deepen. Why didn't you just tell me if you weren't ready? He snapped. I was speechless, taken aback by the accusation. The man who had always been patient with my quirks was suddenly blaming me for something out of my control. The weight of his disappointment and anger settled heavily in the room. I'm not trying to sabotage anything, I said quietly, trying to reach him. This isn't about not caring, it's about something natural. But the distance between us felt wider than ever. He looked away, his jaw clenched, and I could tell he wanted nothing more than to be away from me. I just need space, he muttered before retreating to the living room. I stayed behind, feeling hurt and confused, tears welling up but refusing to let them fall. The silence was deafening, but it was filled with everything we weren't saying. As I sat alone, I questioned myself. Was I really the *** hole here? Was my body's natural reaction something so wrong that it would cause this much anger? I felt frustrated and heartbroken that something so basic could drive such a wedge between us. I knew we had to talk it out, eventually, but the silence stretched on, and the weight of his withdrawal was suffocating. My mind raced with what-if fears and a growing sense of isolation. How do you fix something when the person you trust most suddenly pulls away over something so unexpected? The days after that night stretched on painfully. At first I tried to give him space, hoping that time would ease the tension, but the silence between us was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. I reached out with small texts, simple messages like, "Are you okay?" and "Can we talk?" but they went unanswered. Each unread message felt like a silent judgment. I started to question everything. Was I really the problem here? How could something as natural as needing to poop after sex cause so much damage? I replayed every moment leading up to that night, looking for signs I might have missed, for ways I could have prevented this disaster. My mind spiraled with doubt. Was my body betraying me? Was I being selfish without realizing it? At times, I wondered if I was overreacting, if I should just apologize more, do whatever it took to fix this. But how do you apologize for something you can't control? How do you explain that sometimes your own body feels like an enemy? The anxiety gnawed at me, making it hard to eat or sleep. I felt like I was walking on eggshells around him, afraid that even the smallest misstep would push him further away, despite the distance growing between us. I kept hoping for a breakthrough. I wanted to hear his voice again, to see his face soften like it used to. But each day the emotional gap widened. I could feel us drifting apart, and it scared me more than I'd ever admit. Was this really about a moment, or was it about something deeper that neither of us wanted to face? The silence made me feel invisible, like my needs and feelings didn't matter. And yet, I was still here, trying to hold on to what we had, even when it felt like everything was slipping through my fingers. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he agreed to sit down and talk. We met in the living room, the same space where the tension had started. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I could see the hesitation in his eyes. But I knew this conversation was necessary if we wanted any chance at healing. He started by opening up about how he'd been feeling embarrassed, uncomfortable, and honestly, a little unwanted. He admitted that the thought of what happened made him question the intimacy between us. I didn't know how to say it before, he said quietly, but it made me feel like I wasn't enough, like something was wrong with me. Hearing him speak so vulnerably caught me off guard. I never wanted him to feel that way. I took a deep breath and explained my side, how my sensitive stomach sometimes reacts unpredictably, how it wasn't something I could control or prevent despite my best efforts. It's not about you, or about us, I said softly. It's just how my body works. I wish it didn't happen, but it's not something I'm ashamed of. We talked through the awkwardness, the discomfort, and the frustration that had built up. I listened as he described his confusion and his fear of being rejected. I shared my own hurt, the embarrassment I felt after his reaction, the shame of feeling like my body was a problem. For a moment it felt like we were speaking to different languages, trying to understand a situation neither of us had ever faced before. As the conversation went on, we found moments of connection. We acknowledged that this was hard, but also that it was fixable if we worked through it together. Still, there was a lingering question hanging in the air: would this conversation bring us back together or push us even further apart? Neither of us could answer that yet. But for the first time in days, we were talking, really talking. And maybe that was a start. After that initial conversation, the atmosphere between us shifted, though not entirely in a good way. One evening, he pulled me aside, his eyes heavy with unspoken thoughts. He confessed there was more beneath the surface than just embarrassment about that night. The incident had opened a floodgate of insecurities and frustrations he'd been hiding for months. He admitted he sometimes felt inadequate, and not just sexually but emotionally too. That night had triggered fears about whether I really wanted to be with him, if I saw him as desirable, or if my natural body reactions were a sign of rejection. He confessed he'd been holding back feelings of distrust, afraid that if he showed them, it would push me away. The vulnerability in his voice broke my heart. It was clear this single incident wasn't the root cause, but a spark that revealed deeper cracks in our relationship. We both realized how little we had talked about these underlying fears and how much we had been avoiding the hard conversations. It was painful to face, but necessary. I felt my own heart ache, understanding that this wasn't just about one uncomfortable moment. It was about years of unspoken anxieties and unmet needs. We were both wounded, trying to protect ourselves but hurting each other in the process. The weight of all this settled heavily on us. The future suddenly felt uncertain, and I wondered if we could truly mend what had been broken. Could we rebuild the trust and intimacy, or was this just the beginning of the end? The silence between us returned, but now it was filled with questions we weren't ready to answer. In the quiet aftermath, I found myself reflecting deeply. This painful experience taught me so much about the importance of communication, just the easy conversations, but the uncomfortable, vulnerable ones. I realized how crucial it is to be patient with each other, especially when unexpected challenges arise. I came to understand that normalizing natural human needs, no matter how awkward, is essential for true intimacy. Our bodies do things we can't always control, and expecting perfection or shame-free reactions is unrealistic. Empathy, I learned, is the bridge that keeps relationships intact when life throws curveballs. Though the journey was painful, I found hope in the possibility, but healing. I knew it would take time and effort from both of us, but with openness and understanding, we could navigate this rough patch. Vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a strength that builds deeper connections. This chapter in our story wasn't an ending but a turning point. I believed we could emerge stronger, more honest, and more compassionate toward each other, and that belief was enough to keep me moving forward, one uncertain step at a time. After facing the hard truths and opening up fully, we made a clear commitment to handle moments like these differently in the future. We agreed that if something awkward or uncomfortable happens, whether it's a bodily need or an emotional reaction, we would pause and talk about it openly instead of shutting down or withdrawing. We decided to keep the lines of communication wide open, reminding each other that no natural thing should cause shame or distance between us. It's about creating a safe space where honesty is welcomed, even if the truth feels embarrassing at first. That way, we can support one another instead of building walls. Though it might never be easy, we're both willing to try. Our hope is that this experience strengthens our relationship by teaching us empathy, patience, and understanding. For anyone watching, remember, no matter how weird or awkward a situation might seem, talking honestly with your partner is always the best path forward. Thanks so much for listening to this story from our top. Relationships can be complicated and messy, especially when unexpected things happen that challenge how we connect. So, what do you think? Am I the hole for needing to poop right after sex? Or do you think my partner's reaction was unfair? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our Topposts for more real, raw stories from all kinds of relationships. We dive into the moments that make us human, awkward, painful, and sometimes funny. And don't forget to stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll explore another intense story that's sure to spark a conversation. Until then, keep the conversations open and be kind to yourselves and each other. Thanks again for watching.